Welcome back, everyone. For those of y'all who are new, my name is Mike. I run the Mr. Guns and Gear channel. Typically, we talk about guns and gear, as the name would indicate. However, ever since the President Trump assassination, lots of you guys have just been bombarding me with questions. So I've been doing my best as a person who has no expertise in this field at all. I'm not a former Secret Service agent or anything like that, just to analyze the publicly available data and see what is out there and try to spend some resources on it and try to answer some of your questions. So I did a video on this, I believe, on Saturday. 12 different body cam, I guess, series of footage came out late last week, and we just got a couple more today, which is why I'm making this video. When I'm making this video, it is Monday. This probably won't be up until Tuesday, but a number of things came out in today's body cam footage. One of them that didn't come out, unfortunately, in the different ones that have been released is audio. A lot of them do not have audio. Now, the previous video I did with the officer who was boosted up, and if you guys haven't watched my previous videos, I urge you to do so, or else a lot of the assumptions that I make in this video might not make sense, because I'm just building on what we already know. So I assume that you already know what we know. So the officer that was boosted up previously, I said that I didn't think his audio not being there was suspicious, because a lot of times with police body cams, when you hit start, there's a delay, 30, 60, 90 seconds, etc. However, what we've learned in the follow-up videos is that there actually was recorded during that time, and for whatever reason, they haven't released it. Now, there's been 2 other clips that have been 20-plus minute clips that have had 0 audio released as well, and both of those are from Butler Township. Again, as I stated in my last video, we're still missing video from the state police, badge cam video, body cam video, whatever you want to call it. We're also missing it from Beaver County, and we're also missing it from the Secret Service if they had any on that day. So I say that to say that we have some of the pieces here with this badge cam footage, but we still don't have a lot of the audio, and a lot of it would be super helpful. And we don't have a lot of the videos that we know are out there. Additionally, the AGR complex has a ton of security cameras that are recording in HD. So with that, let's kind of walk through. I built out a new timeline based on what we know now that we didn't know, a few days ago when I made my last video, because everything's changing constantly. And so basically, in this one video that came out here, and if you guys want to search for this, number one, it's on my Twitter page. So you can go to my Twitter, my truth. All you do is click media and then scroll through, and you will see these. A lot of people were confused on that in the last video as to how to access the raw files. And the badge cam that I'm going to be talking about here is 27 minutes long. And the number is 122111. Just for reference, if you search that in a search engine, it should come right up. And so basically, we have this officer that is out in the wood line near the AGR complex, which again is off to the side of where President Trump is speaking. To President Trump's orientation, it is off to his right. However, it is not a 90-degree angle, which will play a role here in just a second. And basically, this officer is walking around for 4 minutes, and he turns towards the AGR building. My guess is, based on the distances that are involved, he probably doesn't initially see crooks running across the rooftop. However, he may have been the one who called that in, which we will walk you guys through here in just a second. So basically, what we have here is he is walking up. Then we get to the point in the video that is at 6 p.m. and 8 minutes and about 2 or 3 seconds, depending on where you actually start the video. But I'm just going to play it for you real quick, and then we're going to go through it clip by clip. So as you guys watch that in real time, it may not have been apparent what was going on, but Thomas Crooks, we believe anyway, is the person that's running across the roof in that little gap there. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to zoom in, and then I'm going to stabilize the footage, and we're going to watch it again. Hopefully you guys were able to see it there. What it looks like is that he jumps down into that little lower roof piece that is a connecting hallway between the AGR buildings, then throws his backpack up and then jumps up another roof. And this is not the final roof. I should point that out here. And basically, let's walk back a little bit before we actually even get to that. So in last week's video, we talked about where he likely ascended from, and that was essentially the farthest building away from President Trump at the AGR complex. And then what we thought previously was that he went up a different building and then took a left. And the reason we thought that was because if you looked at the video again from last week, where you can see his head moving alongside behind the crowd of President Trump as he's speaking, you can see his head peeking over the ridge a couple times during that video. But what we realize now with this new video that we have here is that very likely what you just see is him as he goes up these different rooftops, and when he crests the rooftops, because he's standing up until he gets to that last building where he ended up firing from. So what you really see there is just his head as it goes over those peaks, and the timeline perfectly syncs with that. So that is helpful. It does help with that, and we'll get into the timeline here in just a second, back into it. But very likely, because that complex is not at a perpendicular 90-degree angle with President Trump and the camera that is recording that shows him moving across the ridgeline, the actual angular nature of the building does explain why it appears that he's moving from left to right as you see it, even though he's probably just moving in a straight line along the edge of the building and those little corridors that connect it. So in previous videos, we have shown the dash cam where it shows the actual radio traffic saying somebody's on the roof. And what we think now with this current body cam footage that we see here is that at 8 minutes after 6 p.m. and 17 seconds, this officer's arm moves up across his badge cam and very likely is keying a radio. So very likely this officer right here, from his vantage point that we just kind of rolled in the different segments of, very likely he realized someone was on the roof, made that radio call, and then the two officers that are parked right by the water tower are the ones that you see. You see the one with the badge cam, or excuse me, the actual vehicle camera that we've heard before. And then he's also talking to the guy who's right to his right in a separate vehicle. After they communicate back and forth, they both pull up into the AGR compound, and then the officer gets out. This officer here on the left is the one that was boosted up earlier, and then the other officer here goes about trying to secure a different end of the building.
Someone's on the roof.
What's up, man?
I have someone on the roof with white shorts.
See that dude running?
And like I just said, that officer goes up there and tries to get boosted up on the roof. Apparently Crooks turns to him with the rifle. The officer comes back down. Now there's been a lot of different statements made by different departments, different attorneys general, etc., as well as the Secret Service and the FBI as to when the actual Secret Service knew that this was an issue, because what we know now is that the local police knew at approximately 20 seconds after 6:08 that there was somebody on the roof. Additionally, we also have plainclothes officers on the west side of the building that we know about who were hearing multiple people pointing at the roof. He's on the roof, he's on the roof. And then, of course, a few seconds before shots rang out, he's got a gun. However, before that point, we now know that something, at least something, keyed the Secret Service counter sniper team that was behind President Trump into what was going on at the AGR compound. So we rolled in sketches before here on the channel of the different areas of responsibility for the different sniper teams. And the sniper team that's wearing the black uniform, not the one that's been in the majority of the photos out there, but their sector was not the AGR compound. So for that sniper team to leave their sector and turn towards the AGR compound, there had to be a threat specified on the radio, a cell phone, something like that. And we now know when that happened due to another piece of badge cam that came out. And unfortunately, we don't have the audio again. The audio would be super helpful for a lot of things, but we do at least have the best look at the sniper team. And what we see there is that those guys are essentially on their binoculars, looking around for different threats, not sure what's going on. And basically right at 6:10 p.m. with 11 seconds, those counter snipers return back from their glassing positions. Glassing positions just means spotting. And they actually mount their rifles and orient their rifles toward the AGR compound. Now, whether or not from that position they could actually see Crooks where he was on the roof, because again, we have established that he was standing up, running all the way until he got to the actual building that he was going to fire from. At that point, again, multiple people in the crowd were saying that there's a guy on the roof, he has a rifle, etc. But at that point, he was slow crawling, we believe anyway, up to the point, rather, at the top of the roof where he could engage President Trump as well as other members of the crowd. So again, time-wise, was 11 seconds after 10 minutes past 6 p.m., a point that the counter snipers from position 2, I believe that was Hercules 1 was their official call name, could they actually see him with the slope of the roof at that point? I'm not sure. Additionally, in last week's video, one thing we talked about that I think is very important at this point, we've established that there's been a ton of poor communication between the Secret Service as well as the local police, but there was at least 3 different plainclothes police officers near the AGR compound when the shooting took place. All of them were in shorts and a t-shirt. So Crooks, of course, was dressed in shorts and a t-shirt as well. On the roof, were the Secret Service agents, even the counter sniper team, were they unsure if it was one of the law enforcement officers up there on the roof? I don't know, but I do think that's an important mitigating factor to consider, given the fact that these guys had at least 25 power magnification with night force optics. They would be able to very easily identify as soon as at whatever point Crooks was visible to them, they would very easily be able to identify that he had a weapon. That's not in question in my mind. I'm very familiar with the optics that they were using and the distance that they were away. They would be able to read the serial number on the rifle at that distance. So to be able to identify what it is, no doubt in my mind, they were able to identify a guy with a rifle on the roof. And I think the confusion might have been, was it a police officer doing an Overwatch mission? Or of course, in this case, do we know that it perhaps was a would-be assassin. Of course, we do believe that this is the team that actually took the kill shot, and later on in the badge cam that we were just looking at, in that footage, the officer actually talks to the team, and you guys can see some of their gear here rolled up. Unfortunately, we don't see it as displayed in detail, so we don't really know exactly what they were using, but we do have a better idea of some of the gear that they were using and who they are. Another piece of footage that came out actually shows the dash cam of the officer's car who was attempted to be boosted up. So previously in the videos that we have seen, that's been cut off essentially right after he exits the vehicle and then restarts when he comes back to grab his AR-15. Well, in this case, we actually have the full video, and it's actually 2 hours long if you guys are interested in looking into it. But what we do see is that at 6:13 is when Greg, who we do believe is the local sniper, who was supposed to be in the position behind where Crooks was shooting, comes out of the building, which is building number 6 in the AGR compound. Now, that raises a number of different questions, because if you actually watch the whole dash cam footage, you'll note that he is the first person to come out of the building. So many of us have said, very likely, based on different news reports and things like that, there were a number of different law enforcement agents in building number 6. It's entirely possible that that was the case. However, Greg is the only one that we see come out until later on in the video. A bunch of law enforcement actually go into the building several minutes later. So Greg's the first one that we see come out. And again, the backstory on that was that sometime between 6:06 p.m. and 6:11 p.m., he left his sniper position to go down and tell the local law enforcement on the ground that there was a suspicious person, i.e. Crooks, we do believe, was there, and to let them know. And for whatever reason, apparently he couldn't do it on the radio, he couldn't do it via text message, he couldn't yell to them. We don't really know why. However, again, given the fact that shots just rang out, supposedly 8 shots right above him, and no one comes out of that building for another 2 minutes, or at least a minute and a half. That is an interesting point. I'm not really sure what's going on with that. And was there a command center in there that was stood up and they were communicating back and forth, trying to verify what was happening? Additionally, as we said before, right after the shooting, those plainclothes police officers went in there and they were pointing their guns into the window of that building, which would seem like an odd thing to do if there was a command center in there. So I don't really know what was going on in that building, and that really is one of the standing questions that we still have at this point. We have a couple more pieces of information here that we have found out before we close the video out, and then we also have some questions that we have to answer. But before we do that, I do need to thank the main channel sponsor, and that is Brownells. If you guys aren't familiar with Brownells, they sell all types of firearms accessories, firearms themselves, ammunition, optics, gunsmithing supplies, all of those sorts of things. So definitely check out Brownells if you guys are interested in that. I'd imagine many of you are. Additionally, this is going to be a Mug Club episode where we do the free video here on YouTube and Rumble. And the reason we're going to do a Mug Club episode this week is that we're going to take a good look at some of the images that have come out of Crooks after the actual shots were made on him, and we're going to discuss that. And obviously we can't do that on YouTube because of the YouTube rules. They will not allow for that. It is verboten, and we're going to do that over on Mug Club for our members only. There's a number of folks making content over there if you guys are interested in that, and there should be a code here on your screen as well that will get you guys a free month of Mug Club. So with that, let's continue on. One thing that I mentioned briefly in my last video, and I just assumed that other folks had already heard of it, and that's a mistake on my part, was that the shooter had been a member of a gun range called the Clarendon Sporting Center, or Clarendon Gun Range, which was approximately an hour away. And that range was a place that a lot of different federal agencies, including DHS, conducted frequent training at. Now, that range raises a number of questions. Was he suspicious at any point during that time? Did the federal agents there know him? Did they talk to him? At this point, we don't know. What we do know is that that gun range actually had log records, which is interesting. I actually have never been to a gun range like that, but I'm sure it's not all that uncommon either. And we know that Crooks joined August 10th of the year prior. And in that time, which is roughly, I don't know, just under a year, he went there 43 times. Over 80% of the time, he was training with rifles and not pistols. And he actually went there on holidays as well. So like Christmas, Halloween, times that it would seem odd to some people, but certainly not to others. I've definitely gone to the range on Christmas. I've taken my whole family to the range on Christmas, actually. But for most people, that would be unusual. So we do have those records that he was not just someone who was inexperienced, as some of the earlier reports came out, that he had, essentially been not allowed to be on his school's rifle team. That certainly may be true, but what we do know is that he went to the range at least 40 times, again, 80% of the time firing with his rifle. So he certainly wasn't unprepared to take a 140-yard shot. That would be my guess anyway, just based on those records. A lot of folks have also asked, how did he afford to do that? Given the fact that he worked at a nursing home, I don't know. There's a lot of questions going on for sure, and we definitely have some others at this point as well. One thing that a lot of folks asked in my last video down below in the comments section is essentially they were making the statement that these were Keystone cops, being the patrol officers, the local police out there. And I think these cops did a couple really good things. Like, for example, we knew that this person was acting suspicious at least at 5 p.m. Now, these two police officers, the one who was boosted up, as well as the guy who responded here, who had the badge cam that actually showed Crooks going across, these folks responded, reportedly they got the call at 8 minutes after the hour, and these guys were at the building, either scaling it or conducting a security perimeter within a couple minutes. Now, going from absolutely no threat to that threat, assuming that they didn't know anything was going on prior to that, there's, in my opinion, nothing wrong with that. That's pretty good. And especially when you consider all the different federal agents that were on the scene at that point, including but not limited to the Department of Homeland Security, the Secret Service, and any other number of agents that were on the scene at that point. The fact that these local police officers in a small township that I believe has 12 patrol officers were able to, within 2 to 3 minutes, get on scene and at least present some sort of threat, and it seems anyway, cause Crooks to rush his shots. I think there's commendable things to be said about that. Additionally, there are some questions, though, about their behavior. So, for example, the officer who was boosted up, again, we don't have all of the audio, so it's really hard to say definitively one way or the other. But what we see is him come around the front of the building and him tell the civilians in the crowd to get out of the way. But at that point, as he screamed, there's a guy on the roof with a gun, because he knows it definitively before anybody else, because reportedly, Crooks pointed his rifle at him. So does he call that over the radio? I don't know. Additionally, he could just scream it to the people around him, because this area is not that big. And like we said, there's a number of law enforcement officers in that area. There was another officer who was on the opposite side of the building. And on that side of the building, there's actually a piece of raised ledge. It's a retaining wall. If he had stood on that wall, he would have had a shot at Crooks with his pistol. Again, all of this is hindsight being 2020. I get that. I'm just saying, if the information was put out that there was a potential killer on the roof with a rifle, it may not have gotten to the point where the counter snipers had to take the shot, and perhaps Crooks could have been a little bit more rushed by an officer at the other side of the building firing on him. Again, all of this is if then, and I get that, and it's Monday morning quarterback. But if we can improve, we can improve. And maybe he did get on the radio. I don't know. Again, we don't have any evidence at that point, but I didn't see it. And if he could have just yelled it again, because this area was very, very small, just like he yelled for those people to get out of the way, yell, "Hey, there's a guy on the roof with a gun," might have helped for sure. And as I mentioned earlier, there were a number of plainclothes officers, at least 2 on the opposite side of the building. I'm not sure where the third was, but right around 8 minutes after 6 p.m., they were over there. There's lots of footage showing their position. And again, shortly after that, there were people saying, "He's on the roof, he's on the roof, there's a guy on the roof, there's a guy on the roof." One viewer or attendee was actually on camera doing this to one of the uniformed law enforcement officers. However, the plainclothes police officers certainly could hear people around there talking, and people were moving and repositioning themselves to view the roof. So these plainclothes police officers, I don't know if they didn't have a radio, or they probably didn't if they were in plainclothes, but they probably had a cell phone. Did they get on the horn and notify anyone? And or why didn't they try to get an advantageous position? I don't know. Again, there's a lot of questions at this point, but that certainly is one that came up for me. Additionally, the big one that I really do think is something that is causing a lot of the conspiracy theories, if you will, which certainly may be conspiracy facts by the end of this investigation, is why did the 2 police officers who were in the sniper position leave that position at the critical time to go talk to people on the ground? Supposedly, that's what we're being told. We're being told they did so to communicate to law enforcement officers who were on the ground. Why did they leave it at that position rather than using their radio, their cell phone? Because they've been using their cell phone all day long to communicate this position. What reason was it that you had to leave the one overwatch position to do that? It's very, very questionable. And then additionally, what we don't know is, again, what's been reported by the timeline that came out after the events is that sometime between 6:06 to 6:11 was when the snipers, counter snipers, the local officers left that position to go downstairs. And then again, it's 13 after before we actually see Greg come out of building 6. So there is a gap there, at least 2 minutes, where the shooter was firing from the top of building 6 that we don't know what Greg was doing at that point. And again, I'm not trying to throw Greg out of the bus. It's just we know his name and we know what he was doing. So he's a person that we can point to. Additionally, there should have been at least one other counter sniper that would have made similar decisions and abandoned their sniper position as well. I'd like to know who that is and what they were doing. And of course, there are a ton more questions than that. If you guys have questions that you have unanswered after watching all these videos, let us know down below. But the big one is going to be autopsy results on Crooks. Why don't we have those? Those seem to be something that we should have. I mean, there's, your local homicide in Chicago, you have the autopsy result within a week. This is a national, story and should be in the news every day, although it's not. And coming up on a month and we don't have his autopsy yet. We know from official reporting channels, as well as a couple different audio analyses that have been done, at least 2 shots were fired at Crooks. Did only one hit? Did both hit? We don't know. Additionally, what caliber were they? Where did they go in? All of those sorts of things. Now, we do know one that we will be talking about a little bit later on in Mug Club and where it impacted, but we don't know a lot of the other things. Was he on substances? Those sorts of things. What were the specifics of his rifle? We've talked about the optics before here and the model that has been reported, but there were several officers who took very detailed, close-in shots with their cell phone. You can see it on the badge cams. We don't have those photos yet, so I certainly would like to have that. And lastly, just who was in AGR Building 6? Again, there's been such wildly conflicting reports as to who was in that building, and I think it matters because if he was running across the roof, did they hear those footsteps? It looks to be a metal building, so typically those aren't all that well insulated. So could they hear it? Could they not? If they did, why didn't they come out? There's a lot of questions going on with Building 6, unfortunately. So I guess we'll end it there today, and we're going to head over to Mug Club after this. But yeah, if you guys have anything to add, definitely let us know down below in the comments. Additionally, you can view the main source documents here that we talked about over at my Twitter page, my Truth Social page, my Telegram page. They should be over there for you guys to reference. If you guys aren't following me over there, I definitely recommend you do so. That's where these things break first because I can't do a dedicated video every time a new piece of video or news comes out because it comes out every few hours at this point. and we're just trying to put it all together. Additionally, if you guys are subscribed, thank you. If you're not subscribed, definitely hit that subscribe button. I definitely look forward to seeing all of you guys in the future. So hit the subscribe button. If you've done that and you're not seeing 2 to 4 videos a week here on the channel, you can sign up for my email list at the website here on your screen. This email goes out once a month, and it has all the videos since the previous month's email went out. So that way there's no big tech giant and an algorithm censoring your eyes from my content. Additionally, we have our daily deals. The things we typically talk about, guns, gear, etc., are in that email. 8 of the best deals that we find around the internet. You can sign up for it at the website here on your screen, so definitely do so as well. If it's in the email, whatever the item is, on a given day, it's the cheapest I know of anywhere on the internet for that particular item, so that way it saves you guys some time because I've done the comparisons for you. Also saves you some money. Additionally, lastly, we also have an SMS service now that will let you guys know when new videos come out, when great deals come in stock, at most 1 text per day, so it's not super spammy or anything like that, so you can sign up for that at the website here on your screen. And I think that's all I have. Thank you all for watching. I look forward to seeing all of you guys over on Mug Club.